Hello, fellow audio nerds. I'm Steph, and this is MajorHiFi. Truly wireless earphones are all the rage these days, and Audio-Technica just released their version, the ATH-CKR7TW. So, how do they compare to others in the price range, and how do they sound? Well, let's go back in time. I'll share with you my first impressions, and then I will meet you right back here for my overall thoughts. Alright, here we go. Hey everybody, welcome to my place. So today I've got with me the Audio-Technica ATH-CKR7TW, the truly wireless. So let's see what's inside the box. Alright, so as you'll see here, we've got the earpieces themselves. We've got this charging case for the earphones, a micro USB charging cable here, some documentation, and some ear tips. Now, there are also these little fins that come with it, and these are going to supposedly help them fit in the ears, so we'll see how that turns out. So as for the style of these, I actually kind of like the style. They're pretty unique looking. Like, I haven't seen many other like these. That said, they kind of have this round shape. You'll see kind of like oval shaped, and they're actually pretty girthy. I'm very curious to know how these are going to fit because they're kind of chunky. The thing is, Audio-Technica really wanted to separate the electronics for like the Bluetooth connection from the actual, like acoustic chambers so that they could, make them sound as good as possible. So as a result, there's sort of like two layers here, and that makes them a little bit thick. You'll also notice here that, see if you can see it, along the top here is our little buttons. Now both earphones have them. These will help us connect them wirelessly to the phone, but they'll also be used for kind of controlling playback, volume increases, and that kind of thing. Now, let's see how they fit in the ears, because I don't know. They're pretty large here. Let me try adjusting the little fins a little bit and see if that kind of helps. Yeah, okay, I think I kind of figured out the best way to do this. So, for me, I've got the small ear tips on here and the fins, and I'm noticing that to get the fins kind of stick out pretty far. Like for my ear, they're really kind of too big. So what I've done is I put them in the ear, and then I kind of twist them backwards and then twist them forward again, and then this can kind of get into the right position. Alright, so now that I got these things fitting okay, I think it's worth mentioning that these are, once I get them in place, they fit very securely. Like, they didn't want to come out at all. There's a really kind of like tight seal both in the ear canal and then the connection with these little the little wings. But I do think that it takes a little bit more effort to get these in place if you have smaller ears. For those with larger ears, I think you'll have an easier time. Alright, so I'm just going to connect these now to my phone, go into the Bluetooth devices, power on, Bluetooth connected. Alright. Before getting into the sound, I will just mention that the controls on these are kind of unique because there's really only these two buttons to control the playback. So I recommend looking at the instruction manual for like 2 seconds before kind of messing around with it, because it'll make a lot more sense. But the buttons, the controls do seem to be functioning really well. There's a slight lag, but it's nothing too much. Right on. I was just listening to the song Desperado by Rihanna, and the big synth, the big bass synth in that song kind of came through with more energy than usual. It definitely seems like there's some bass emphasis on these earphones. That said, it sort of like seemed to mask the low parts of the kick a little bit, but all in all, it came through with a lot of power, and it really actually contributed to the vibe of that song, which kind of wants that big low end. Alright, I was just listening to the song Thanks for Nothing by Middle Brother. And the instrumentation of that song is like some kind of light drumming, some bass, acoustic guitar, and electric guitar, and then vocals, obviously, I guess. The vocals seemed to sit a little bit forward in the mix, and so did sort of the attack of the strings of the acoustic. Meanwhile, also, the bass guitar seemed a little bit forward in the mix, kind of indicating a little bit of a low-mid bump. The electric guitar did seem a little bit further back in space, a little bit further away. All in all, it's definitely kind of seeming to have a little bit of a smiley face kind of shape to its mid-range. Alright, I was just listening to the song Fever by Ray Charles featuring Natalie Cole. In that song, there's some finger snaps and some bongos and some cymbals, and all of those had a really nice kind of sense of air and definitely clarity. I could really hear them quite well. The cymbals did feel a little bit thinner than usual. They weren't as rich as they usually are, but there was definitely like a sense of aesthetically pleasing shape to the high end. The vocals sat kind of where they usually sit in the mix level-wise, although there was a little bit less of like the chest feeling, and it was a little bit more of like a throat kind of thing. There seemed to be like, it's kind of interesting to try and explain the sound of the vocals. It kind of seems like there's a little bit less like mouth sound to the vocals, but it did maintain a sense of texture, like, because Ray Charles's voice and Natalie Cole's for that matter would sometimes come through with that little bit of like rasp to it, and that rasp came through clearly and you could really hear it, so it kind of maintained that emotional integrity as well, because of that. Alright, I was just listening to the song Cleba by Erykah Badu. And with this one, the soundstage, there's definitely a nice sense of heights, the contrast between kind of the lowness of the kick and the bass, contrasted well with the hi-hat, which, is definitely has that sense of brightness to it. I will say the sense of depth was a little bit skewed differently because there's that bit of a high mid boost, I think, that I sort of explained before, and that kind of made the vibraphone in that song take a step forward, whereas usually it kind of feels further back, and it's got this kind of three-dimensionality to it, and it definitely took a step forward because of that high mid boost. Anywho, I'm looking forward to playing with these a bit more, seeing how they continue to function over time, and kind of analyzing the sound a little bit more for y'all. So I will meet you back at the MajorHiFi office. Alright, here we go. The low frequencies are emphasized right around the area where the fundamental of many kick drums lives, so as a result, kick drums tend to sit a little bit louder in the mix than usual. Now, this boost sometimes comes across as a little bit of a sense of cloudiness, but other times it sort of contributes to the bigness and the sturdiness of the low frequencies. The mid-range of the CKR7TW emphasizes both the low mids and the high mids, and as a result, the middle part of the mid-range kind of comes through a little bit quieter in the mix. Now, the low mids have this boost that sort of gives extra energy to bass guitars, cellos, low horns, even kind of the bottom range of electric guitars. So it sort of creates this sense of like girth down there that sounds really cool for music that wants extra energy down there. Likewise, the high mids have a little bit of a boost as well, and as a result, snare drums kind of come through with a little bit of extra snap. Vocals tend to sit a little bit forward in the mix. Now, to sort of balance that high mid boost, there's actually a little bit of a dip I found in the lower treble. And likewise, there's a little bit of a boost in the upper treble and a boost in the upper octave. Now, as a result, rich high-frequency instruments like cymbals kind of sound a little bit thinner than usual, but they have a lot of texture and they have a lot of lift, and therefore it sort of maintains its place in space and its level in the mix, but just sounds a little bit different tonally than normal. Now, before sort of getting into how these earphones performed soundstage-wise, I do want to just say to be careful when you're placing these in your ears, because if they're not kind of perfectly even in your ears, the soundstage is really affected. I kind of made that mistake at first, like a few times when I was listening to these, where I kind of didn't have them like evenly in my ears, and the soundstage sounded super wonky. Once I fixed it though, the soundstage kind of regained focus. So just a word of advice for you if you do end up getting something like this. But as for the soundstage, the sense of height was probably the most noteworthy. There's really nice contrast between, you know, the sort of things that sat up high, hi-hats, cymbals, vocals even sometimes, and then the things that really kind of anchor it down low, kick drums, bass guitars, sub-synths, that kind of thing. The sense of depth was a little bit different than usual, mostly because the high-mid boost sort of brings instruments that would otherwise be further back in space a little bit closer to you. Now, as a result, you definitely kind of get a sense of extra clarity from those kinds of instruments, but at the same time, you miss out on the kind of depth of it. So, you know, for better or worse, I guess. Overall, the Audio-Technica ATH-CKR7TW is a good option for those who like a little bit of a smiley face curve to their earphone sound signatures. I found them to work best with genres like hip-hop, pop, sometimes rock, but there is a little bit of that dip in the middle part of the mid-range. Additionally, I actually thought that they fit quite well despite their large size, although I will say they'll probably work the best for folks with average-sized ears to large-sized ears. If you have really small ears, you might have a little bit of trouble. My ears are kind of small, but they still actually worked pretty well for me. Anywho, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you want to check out a comparison review between these earphones and the Apple Airpods, check out the description box down below. I've left a link to my colleague's comparison review. Otherwise, thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Give us a thumbs up if you liked the video, and be sure to subscribe for more like this. Alright, I will see you next time. Bye.